notice that the government isn't just doing bad things, it's doing bad things that don't even make sense. Like, why would Krasnov rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America? And why would he ban AP News from the White House just because they refuse to say it? And why is he scrubbing every government mention of DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, as if it never existed, as if it was a bad thing? Y'all, these moves are not just random. They are acts of authoritarianism, and this is part of the fascist playbook. So hey y'all, I'm Shaniqua, and this is I Got Tea, time to educate America, because clearly somebody needs to. And today, we're breaking down the third warning sign of fascism according to Umberto Eco's 14 Laws of Fascism. Number 3, action for action's sake. Now, this concept means that fascists don't care about governing or creating real solutions. Instead, they obsess over taking action, even if it's chaotic, self-destructive, or flat out nonsensical. They do this because when everything is unstable, it's easier for them to grab power. So, what is action for action's sake? Since fascists do not care about long-term solutions, well-planned policies, or evidence-based decisions, they focus instead on constant movement, disruption, and destruction. You could tell that pasty billionaire is one of those guys. When things are unstable, people get overwhelmed, exhausted, and disoriented. And that makes it easier for fascists to seize control when the public is distracted. You know, they call this a blitzkrieg, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, a few ways they do this. They flood people with constant executive orders that contradict each other. They repeal laws just to change them later again. Oops, I fired all the people over the nuclear stuff. They attack trusted institutions so people no longer know what is real. Let's look at some historical examples, okay? Example number 1, Mussolini and endless policy changes. Now, Umberto Eco grew up under Mussolini, so, you know, he's able to talk about this. But Benito Mussolini's government was a non-stop mess of conflicting policies. One day he would pass a law, the next day he would repeal it, the day after that he would blame his political enemies for the confusion. Y'all, come on. Like the pasty billionaire breaking the FAA by firing so many people, including the directors, and then having all these air accidents, and then saying, oh my God, the FAA is in disarray, so now you need to have my Starlink. Are you fucking kidding me? And people are falling for it? Because it is apparent that not only is he inept and unqualified and not at all intelligent like y'all think, his goal is really not even to govern. It is to exhaust the public so they would stop resisting. I mean, we have to understand and look at the patterns. This is what the pasty billionaire has done with Twitter. Whatever. This is what Krasnov did in his first administration under the tutelage of Bannon, which was hit them with so much news they don't know where to look. Look over here, but I'm actually doing this, okay? The goal is not to govern. The goal is to exhaust the public so that they will stop resisting. That brings us to example number 2. So example number 2 is the Nazi legal blitzkrieg. Y'all, Mustache Man did not just take power, he flooded Germany with new laws so fast that no one could react in time. He gutted worker protections, free speech, and civil rights in rapid succession. And by the time people realized what was happening, it was too late to actually stop him. There literally was a position held by this guy named Goebbels that was about nothing but propaganda. Now, example number 3 is going to be the U.S. under, Krasnov and the GOP. Because in 2017, the Republican Party tried to repeal Obamacare 70 times. They did not have a plan to replace it. They simply wanted to destroy it. They issued executive orders to break existing policies first and felt like they'll just deal with the consequences later. They ran congressional investigations not to prove anything, but to flood the news cycles with distractions and chaos. And it worked. So, how does it show up today? Well, let's start with renaming the Gulf of Mexico. The goal of it was not just about renaming the Gulf of Mexico, because it's not about geography. The man doesn't even know geography. It was about forcing people to comply with nonsense to assert power. And Google and Apple immediately fell in line and changed their maps to reflect their fabricated name. Thank y'all for flooding them with the wrong information. And when the AP News refused to comply, they were banned from the White House and Air Force One. Now, if that's not a classic case of pure authoritarian censorship, I don't know what is. So listen, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America may very well be a trial run for something much bigger. How about changing the name of the United States itself? What happens when the United States of America becomes something entirely different on paper? It could mean that the Constitution no longer applies. So if the country's legal name, legal identity changes, it could open the door for removing existing laws and protections. I mean, could the Constitution apply to something that's no longer called the United States? It could allow Krasnov to declare a new system of government where rights aren't automatically carried over. And if they invalidate the Constitution, there is going to be no rules to limit his power. Y'all may think Humpty Dumpty is Humpty Dumpty, but I don't know. Is he? This wouldn't be the first time a dictator has pulled this move. Mustache Man turned Germany into the Third Reich to override previous laws. That guy over across seas, he rewrote Russia's constitution to let himself stay in power indefinitely. Something somebody else is trying to do. Thank goodness he's in his 80s. Mussolini gradually erased Italy's parliamentary system and he replaced it with a fascist rule. Y'all, Krasnov is already laying the groundwork. He's undermining the judiciary. By saying he doesn't have to listen to judges, he is signaling that the law doesn't apply to him. And if courts can't check him, he can rule by decree instead of just executive order. By erasing DEIA from government websites and deleting all records of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, the government is making it harder for people to prove discrimination and to push for accountability. Listen, no records mean no lawsuits. No lawsuits mean no justice. And then he destroyed the police accountability website. So without watchdogs to track police violence and misconduct, officers can act with total impunity. Why do you think he wants that to happen? Because if no one can track police brutality, it's like it never happened. And he gets to tell them what to do without accountability. And this plan to destroy the Rose Garden and moving that Resolute desk out of the Oval Office, these actions are not just about redecorating the White House. They are about symbolism. The Rose Garden was a legacy of Jackie O, nearly 100 years, and now Krasnov wants to pave over it for a patio? This is part of his obsession with erasing history and making the White House in his own image. And temporarily moving the Resolute desk out of the Oval Office might seem harmless at first, especially since it's being lightly refinished after the pasty billionaire's human son, wiped a booger on it. But if the desk used by both Obama and Biden doesn't return, it shouldn't surprise anyone who knows how obsessed he is with erasing the legacy on the presidency. Thank God his footprints are small. So listen, why is this dangerous? Fascists don't break things to fix them. They break things to make governing impossible. If they can flood us with chaos, we cannot organize. If they can erase the past, we cannot fight for the future. And if they can make laws meaningless, nothing can stop them. But we can. So here's what we can do to actually fight back. Because where we are right now is definitely signaling it's time to push back. So here's how we stop them. Number one, stop letting them overwhelm us. Fascists win when people feel hopeless and paralyzed. So focus on what matters most and do not let them distract you with nonsense. If that means creating in-person community, that's what you're going to need to do. Step away from social media because it is obviously being used as their propaganda machine. Anybody else notice that Facebook was filled with right-wing agenda? So the second thing you can do is support independent media. AP News stood their ground and refused to comply with the propaganda. Well, independent journalists and fact checkers, they're our last defense against state-controlled narratives. So follow them, check in with them, and then do something with the information they give to you. So here's the third thing you can do. Keep records. Document everything. They're erasing DEIA, police accountability reports, and historical facts. So take screenshots, save articles, and keep receipts. And if you have the storage, there's a website that lets you download entire information from sites. Number 4, hold these tech companies accountable. Yes, they're part of the oligarchy, but Google and Apple help rewrite geography overnight to fit the regime's demands. So push back, keep pushing back, and expose their compliance and demand transparency. So y'all keep leaving those negative comments on them. And number 5, stop them from rewriting the country. If they rename the US, the Constitution likely no longer applies. And this is how dictators legally remove rights without passing a single law. So, if these actions were really about making America stronger, making America great again, putting America first, then why is everything they touch getting weaker? Why are they breaking the government? So y'all, help me get this message out. Share, comment, engage. I need all the help I can get because my channel, my videos are being suppressed. All right, y'all. So it's been another wonderful episode of I Got Tea. Time to educate America. And of course, they're not going to like what's next. So, comment below and let me know, what do you plan to do to fight back?